Hey friends and family, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today I'm responding to a video challenge that I was tagged in by Nova Luna Tarot. Now, I think it might have been a little bit ago that she tagged me, and for those of you watching, if you ever tag me on something and I don't respond, please don't think it's because I'm rude. It's because I was just unaware that I was tagged. Most of the time somebody will contact me and say, so-and-so tagged you or mentioned you. And when, of course, when I hear about that, I respond, with a thank you. But this time I was actually like scrolling and I saw a category that said mentions. And so I looked at it, and there it was. It was a video, tag for the 10. I'll have the proper tag name down below. I forgot what it was, but essentially it was the 10 essential Tarot of Marseille decks. Now, this is a subjective because everybody who does it is choosing their favorites, right? Or choosing decks that they think are very important. But, to the collection, to the conversation, to the TDM conversation. But full disclosure here, most of the ones that I have are Italian. So they're pip style in the fashion, perhaps, of Tarot of Marseille. But I can't even say in the fashion of Tarot of Marseille because the Italian ones came first. So, but there's a mix here of I have some Italian, I have some French, and I even have a German. So I don't know if I should flip the camera or just show you the cards in this direction. I'm not sure. Okay, now this is going to be a combination of subjective, which ones I think, I love, and also I love all of them. But also which ones might be more practical to have in your collection. If you can only afford one deck, say, for example, of a Dodal, do you want to spend, a lot of money on a Dodal, or do you want to keep it down in price but get a quality Dodal, that kind of thing. So I'll be showing off a few Dodals, a few Dodal options. I think a few, I don't want to spoil it. Okay, so let me figure out how I'm going to do this, and then we'll get started. Okay, so let's get the sentimental favorite out of the way right away, and that would be the 1JJ Swiss. I just can't part with this one. This one was my very first tarot deck. It was the very first deck that got me into tarot, and it's beautiful. So... and of course it's a best in song because you'll notice that the number 2 and number 5 cards are Juno and Jupiter. So it's not a true TDM, but it's gorgeous. Look at this deck. And I've said this every time I've done a video showcasing it. Every time I hold this deck, I get the same surge of energy that I felt the first time I held it in my hands. It's just amazing how it, nearly 50 years later, I still feel it. I feel that energy, that connection. And I am always reminded by how I saw it on television, and then when I chanced upon it at a store, 5 or 7 years later, something like that, I knew immediately what it was, and wow. Okay, so there's that deck. And these aren't in any particular order. Now, my favorite deck for using, a deck that I love to use, of course, we know is the Metelli. Now, the Metelli is also kind of different, and also because of the cards number 2 to 5. Now, this deck was the first Metelli full 78 card deck that was given to me by Shell David, who I'm extremely grateful that he provided me with my first 78 card Metelli. At any rate, you'll notice that cards 2 through 5, and I'm not even sure if I have these in the right sequence, don't have the traditional, any of the cards traditional, So that is a little bit of a problem as far as, interpreting these cards, because we don't have the female presence of either the female Pope or the Empress. However, I work around that. I give the attributes of those two cards to the fellas. And the only complication here is deciding which one is the female pope, which one is the Empress, equivalent or the sequence of. Now, when these cards were used in play, when any of these cards popped up to be politically correct, which is another reason why they were all men and not showing specific references to like maybe Pope Joan or whatever, they were all given the same points, the same point value. So none of these ranked over the other. That was truly a politically correct thing. So when any of these cards popped up, they were all given the same value and points. And I think the person who won the hand or won the trick would have been either the person who laid it first or the person who laid it last in the trick. So I'm not positive how that worked out. But this is a gorgeous deck, and that's the only thing about that particular, there are some cards that are strange, different, like, the Hanged Man is a little odd. And I guess the Tower. So there are a few, the Star card looks like the Hermit in other decks, right? So there are things about this deck that are different, but I think that's why I love it. It's truly original. So I have this nice version that was given to me by Shel David, and I also have this gorgeous one by Marco Benedetti, and of course it's #1. So I am like so thrilled beyond tears to have this deck. Handmade. My handmade Metelli. Now it's not in any order, as you can see. And this one is probably the star of my collection. Well, I have some beautiful decks, but this is definitely among my favorite, for sure. And, if we're asking me subjectively, which ones would I never give up? I guess that's kind of what I'm going to say. How I'm determining which ones of these decks I'm including in this video. I'm including the ones that I probably would never want to give up. Now, those are a few. There's a few that are not French. We have the Swiss and we have the Italian. Now let's go check out the Dodal, which may or may not have been created for an Italian market because it's referenced as the Dodali. Now I have multiple copies of the Dodal, one of them being Sullivan Hismans. So if you'd like to, invest a couple bucks and buy, a lovely art deck, I think this is definitely a quality deck to have. And I'll show you a few of the cards. And of course, it's not in any particular order here, but that's okay because we're not doing. But this is a beautiful deck, nicely done, by Sullivan Hismans over at Tarot Sheet Revival. It's TDM1, by the way. You saw the 4 on the Emperor, and the blindfolded Cupid, the canopy on the Chariot. As far as it's a stiff deck, and it's large. So there may be reasons why, if you have this one, it might be mostly for your collection rather than one that you could use practically, although I think there are lots of people who use this practically. And I do use it for readings frequently. But typically when I grab for a Dodal, I'll grab for the Artisan because it retains the charm of the original, but it's got that linen, if you're a reader who reads all the time, it's kind of nice to have a shuffleable deck, right? A deck that's made to be shuffled and handled. So, and you know, and they did, you know, I don't want to say clean up, but they made changes to the deck in order to make it, you know, I guess, you know, a little clearer to see. And sometimes when I do, you know, videos, sometimes I want the cleanest deck. Now the Sullivan Hismans is also very clean. But you know, sometimes it's just nice to have a deck that's not vague and reproduces well, because you're doing readings for people and they want to see the cards, and so they're not necessarily trying to guess what's on the card itself. Okay, another of my very favorite pip style decks is the Anonymous Tarot Paris. Now I have another one, but this one photographs better and it's a cleaner. It makes all the images on each of the cards a lot easier to see. And this one is the put out by the International Museum of Tarot. It comes with a book that's all in Italian. Oh, my bad. No, this one's not in Italian. I apologize. Half Italian, half English. And this deck is awesome. I was hoping that Artisan would do this one, because the deck is large. You know, you can see I can't shuffle it. I can't riffle shuffle. Although the cardstock is very nice. We hold it in half, and I mean, it's a nice cardstock, but it's so large, and it's the generosity in size that I think makes it nice too, because you can see the image is nice and clear. Oh, my desk is so crowded. I'm sorry. But these images are so cool. Now, truth be told, I use this for personal use, not for client use, because the cards are so large and I can't really get my signature spread with the 14 cards in a screenshot or anything. But if I do like quick readings, you know, with like maybe 3 or 4 cards or something, I'll use these, because I can use these. But look at what a nice job was done with these cards. And I like it too, because this, you know, I love, like, for example, the world card is not the typical world card. I hate the typical world card. I never liked it much. And all of these cards are just fascinating. You know, there's just a real fascinating take on each of the cards. The one thing I dislike about this particular deck is the back. I don't get the back. And look how l'ermite. It's interesting how it's written. 2 faces. And the chariot with a swan. With the swans, you know, ahead, you know, so cool. So I appreciate this also. Let me pause so I can clear the table of a few cards and make a little more room. Now, I have personal favorite mass-produced decks that you don't have to spend a lot of money on. And when I say, you know, not a lot of money, I mean like under $30, right? And this one I think was under $20, the Classic Tarot by Lo Scarabeo, which is very similar to the Ancient Italian Tarot also by Lo Scarabeo. Now, this one came first in, like, I think the 1830s. And then this one came later, I think in the 1880s. So it came 50 years later, but clearly was modeled on this original deck. Now, the reason I have this in the petite size is because it doesn't have the languages that Lo Scarabeo is very fond of putting in. But, you know, nobody does tarot like the Italians. Come on. I mean, these cards are great, right? They're so beautiful. So this is, you know, if you're looking, you know, I don't think a deck has to be extremely expensive in order to be useful. In fact, most of the decks that I use on the regular are not expensive, I mean, I use this on the regular quite frequently now that I have it. I just recently bought it, but I use it quite a lot, especially for larger spreads because it's a petite size. It's petite like the Noble is petite. And then the other ancient Italian tarot, which is also very similar. And in some ways, I like this one better, actually. And I've used this deck thousands of times. And Scarabeo, does a good job with quality cardstock. It's like a person who uses tarot on the regular can use these decks because the cardstock holds up. But obviously, I love it. I love these because look at how beautiful they are. They're just so refined. Look at that. Oh, so pretty. And, when a friend is interested in tarot or I don't know what to buy somebody for a holiday or something like that, I buy them this. This is the deck I buy them. And if somebody comes to me and says, I want to take your course, but I don't know what deck to buy, what's a good deck, I'll give them a list of nice mass-produced decks that I know they're not going to spend a whole lot of money on. In case they don't like tarot after all, after they take my classes, maybe they realize it's not for them or something like that. They didn't invest a whole lot of money. Now, in the way that I loved my 1JJ Swiss because it's a first, how do you not love the first tarot decks? Now, in that category, we have the Budapest. This one is by Sullivan Hismans Tarot Sheet Revival. I guess it would be considered an art deck. It's a bit more expensive, so if you have a couple bucks to spend and you want a copy of the Budapest, this is a prime copy to have. But you can get it in more economical. And again, it's one that they're different, right? They're not, I guess I'll be honest, I'm not particularly attracted to the TDM style because I like the ones that are a little different. You know what I'm saying? Plus, this is Italian. Even though it doesn't sound like it's Italian, it is. And this is one of the earliest mass-produced tarot decks from the 1500s, early 1500s. The Rosenwald is also another, but it's black and white. The copy that I have is black and white, so I prefer to have a little color on mine. Another old Italian would be, there's a couple. Well, we have the Marco Benedetti Charles VI, which is probably more accurately known as the Estensi, but it's called the Charles VI Tarot. And I've done lots of videos on this one. Again, it's like a very early deck. Some of these are, this is original to the deck. These two are not. These three are not. So Marco, had to supplement the missing cards with other cards from the period of time. So these aren't necessarily accurate, but I still love them as though they were, because these are original, because they were all early tarot decks. So even the ones that were included, like this one, and the ones that I just skipped, they were still very early tarot decks. Among the first. And many times, I guess, the Visconti Sforza decks are given credit for being the oldest, but that's not necessarily true. But I do love the one that I have by Lo Scarabeo. Yeah, it's blingy, it's shiny, but I love it. I can't help myself. Now, for those of you who are interested in knowing exactly which one this one is also known as the Cari El Visconti. And these cards are gorgeous. Well. And again, the imagery, like for the star and the sun and the star and the tower, I think this tower is a recreation for the deck, so it wasn't an original. But, look at this, like the world. I'm just more attracted to the beautiful art. The moon. So I guess I'm cheating because they're not truly TDMs. I end up showing all these Italian decks, but I guess it's my video. I can do what I want. Now, I've shown the Hess very recently in many videos, but in case you didn't catch any of those, I'll just show you very quickly. The Hess, it's a German deck. This one's put out by Giordano Berti. But everything about this deck is just a delight, to handle it. And it has features of both TDM1 and TDM2, which makes it kind of an interesting deck because I don't know if it's a transition deck, but it just shows the, some of the influences from the different styles appear in some decks, and this is one of them. Let's see if I can find another example of where we have a reference to either TDM1 or 2. I should have put these in order. Oh well. Let me pause the camera and I'll come right back. Okay, so I just grabbed a couple. So here we have the face and the belly of the devil. But here we have a non-blindfolded Cupid. This is neither TDM1 nor 2, but I just comment on it every time I see a deck like this where there's a window in place of what I perceive to have been the canopy overhang of a throne. Now here we don't really have a throne. We have the suggestion of curtains and then a window. In TDM1, the fire is emanating from the tower. In TDM2, we have it coming from the sky. And in this one, it's kind of like undecided, I think. But we have the characteristic TDM1 of the canopy. There's my boyfriend. I don't know why I put him in. Oh, except for his face. Look at the faces. They're so charming. And then we have a TDM2 style moon. So this deck, the Hess deck, I think is significant because it shows a combination between styles that, that made it to Germany, right? I mean, these are in the fashion of a French deck, but it's a German deck. So it's interesting to show the influences that made it to Germany at this time. And I think this deck, where's the box, is 1750. So this box is 1750. Now, let's see. I have another Visconti, which I guess I should have shown when I did the Lo Scarabeo deck. This one, for those of you who want to know the difference between the two, is from Pierpont Morgan collection. And it's another lovely deck. Another early Italian deck. Not necessarily the earliest, but among them. Maybe the earliest. And, for a lot of reasons, historically significant, like the first, maybe one of the first appearances of the female pope and clues of who she might be. Blindfolded Cupid. It's just thrilling to have one of the earliest decks, that exists. And that's why I chose all the early Italians, because I think it's just a thrill to have those. And, oh, I have a couple more, especially, oh, how can I forget the Via-Ville? Oh, and the Noblet. Okay, so I have a few Noblets. The Flornoy Noblet is a very famous Noblet to have. Comes with a nice booklet. And it's also a different deck, so I kind of enjoy it because it's got some anomalies, you know. It's just a little bit different than regular TDM. And we'll see that this has characteristics of TDM 1. We have the fingers behind the hanged man, and we have it looking like it's coming from the building, and the front facing moon, and there are other things I guess I missed, but and then the skirt on the figure in the world card. I'm not sure how expensive this deck is, or maybe it's not available anymore, but another copy of the Noblet, which is wonderful, is the Artisan. And this one is, like, you know, where Artisan really shines, aside from clarification of each of the cards, is just the quality of the card stock. You know, if you're a reader and you have a marathon day and you just need one deck, you know, grabbing an Artisan deck is not a bad option because they shuffle beautifully, and they can be used for the long haul. You know, like they could be used for marathon days, which is why I like them so much. Plus, they're lovely, and they're pricey. I mean, you know, they're like probably $50 in that range, but they'll last. And then, of course, if you go to their website, sometimes, if they're still available, you can get these beautiful pouches and stuff. So they have some nice things besides just their tarot decks. Okay, let me clear the desk and I'll come back again. Okay, now these are two, but they're the same. Oh, my bad, the Via-Ville. I think I have a Via-Ville by someone else too, but I guess I didn't grab it. And this is the Artisan. You know, the Artisan, they did a great job with this Via-Ville. It's so clean, and yet it really retained the charm of the Via-Ville, and it's excellent for photographing. So the Via-Ville is another French deck, probably circa the same period of time that the Noblet came out. Let's see what we have here as far as like style influences. We have an unblindfolded Cupid, with Cupid going in this direction, and yet we have the scalloped canopy. We have the, I don't know if I have these in order or not. We have the hanged man with the fingers, but he's upright, right? So they either got the number wrong, or I don't know what happened here. If to do it this way, it's not correct either for an 8 or a 12. But it seems like, and quite a few decks that might have been influenced by this one, or this one that might have been influenced by those, have the inverted hanged person. But this is an awesome deck to have. And if you're looking for a Via-Ville, which is a little different, French, is this French, or is this French or Belgium influenced, I guess. I could be wrong. I apologize. I'm not clear. My memory is not so certain, but it's a gorgeous deck. I love it. And I like this one in particular because, again, it's shuffleable. And when you're doing client readings, they can easily, readily see the images. So for that reason, I really love the Artisan decks. And let's see, I have one more. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me. It's a mass-produced Marseille. because if you just want a straight up Marseille deck, this is a fun one to have. Now it's by I think this is Lo Scarabeo. I'm pretty sure this is Lo Scarabeo. Yeah. But it's got the gold bling. Now, okay, I know that as far as we know, there are no TDMs with gold bling on it. So it's a little over the top. But what can I say? I love it. And I got this one for each of my grandchildren too, because when I move them from, say, using, a deck like this, one of the Italian decks, to TDM proper, I'll probably use this, to attract them, because who can't resist a little bling? And I like it. I like it. So if you only have less than $30 to spend on a tarot deck and you want a TDM, it's a TDM 2 style. But why not? Why not? It's fun, it's pretty, and it's got all the essential ingredients of TDM proper. Look, see here we have the canopy. It's still, it's not a chair back exactly. It's some kind of curtain, but it's still suggestive of the back or the canopy of whatever this is. So I probably showed more than 10, but they might have been duplicates. So I think I probably kept it to about 10, even if some were the same. Yeah, we won't count them as being 2 different ones. And they're not all TDMs, because some of them are Italian and some were German. But they're all, and one was Swiss, but they're all, I think, close enough. I don't know if that's, maybe somebody will bite my head off for saying that, but they're all, let me flip the camera. They're all pips. So some of them were French, but not TDM. Some of them are Italian, but similar to TDM, etc. So I hope you enjoyed my 10 favorite or essential pip style decks, and there's probably others, but I have so many I can't go through every single one. But the ones that pop into my head for filling this category, I think I've shown. Until next time, friends, peace and stay well.